We're pleased to be speaking today with Yoseph Haddad. Yoseph is one of Israel's most prominent Israeli Arab social activists and an incredible advocate for the state of Israel. At the age of 18, Yoseph enlisted in the IDF and served in the elite Golani Brigade, where he was seriously injured during the Second Lebanon War. Since then, he has devoted his life toward helping Israel and founded Together, Vouch for Each Other, an organization of Israeli Arabs who work both to promote integration and combat the anti-Israel incitement stemming from many in the Arab community in Israel. Yosef, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. It's good to see you again. Now, I want to start by asking you to explain a little about yourself and your background, where you were born, how you experienced growing up as an Israeli Arab in Israel. Were you always pro-Israel, or what caused it to come about, and so on?
Okay, so actually it's a very important question, because the fact is where I was born and my childhood, where I grew up, it has a significant, huge issue of why I am doing today what I'm doing today. But I will start from the beginning to say that for me to be a pro-Israeli, it's something obvious since I am an Israeli. And I'm saying exactly these words because I was, for instance, born in Haifa, which is the biggest mixed city in Israel. You have Arabs, Christian, Muslim, Druze, and you have Jewish people in Haifa. And I born there, but I grew up in Nazareth, which is the biggest Arabic city in Israel. And alongside or beside near Nazareth, you have Nazareth Elite, today it's Nova Khalil, Afula, Migdal HaEmek, which means I always had friends from all sectors all the time. Growing up like this made me realize that eventually we're all Israelis. It doesn't matter if you're an Arab, it doesn't matter if you're a Jewish, it doesn't matter if you're Christian, Muslim, or Druze. But I think me and my friends, until today, we have this inside of us. By the way, we used to play football a lot. And after we were in the neighborhood in Kiryat Eliezer. And after that, we would go out and drink and have fun together. And we never looked at each other in a different way. I remember this one day when we were all sitting down and said, we have so much in common, especially football. And then I said something else. I said, yeah, but there is one more thing that we have in common. We're all Israelis, and it doesn't matter if you're an Arab or Jewish. And that realization made me understand that because of the fact that I grew up in a diverse community with my friends from all over, from all the sectors, it made us actually be a better human being for each other. And by the way, that was part of why I decided to volunteer to the IDF. Because for me, eventually, the IDF, it's not the JDF. It's not a Jewish defense force. It's an Israeli defense force. And I'm part of Israel. And when I saw my friends, my Jewish friends and my Druze friends serving in the army, I asked myself, why I'm not serving in the army? Obviously, I knew the answer. Arab Israelis are not obligated to serve. But it's still, why? This is my country, my society, and you know, the simple fact is that terrorism doesn't really care about if you're an Arab or a Jewish. As long as you're Israeli, you are a target of terrorism. And I saw this, by the way, just 1 month before I was supposed to start my service. I started my service in the Golani Brigade in November 2003. On the 4th of October 2003, a suicide bomber, a female suicide bomber, came to the Maxim restaurant in Haifa. She blew up the restaurant, ended up killing 17 innocent people. 4 of them were Israeli Arabs. And imagine, in 1 month before I was supposed to start my service. Mm-hmm. And during the weeks before, a lot of my friends would ask me, are you sure that you're taking the right path? Are you sure that you are doing exactly what you want to do? And you know, an event, a terrible event like this, it only reassured me that I'm doing the right thing. And yeah, I wouldn't change it. If I go back in time, I still wouldn't change it. And I want to also give you another information. Mm-hmm. If I jump 3 years later, when I participated in the Second Lebanon War, okay, 44 civilians killed during the war. 50% of them were Israeli Arabs, killed by Hezbollah rockets. And I'm saying it because a lot of people asked me during those years when I was serving in the army, how do you feel on going on and going in a war or against Lebanon, against Arabs like you? And I said, I'm not fighting Lebanese, and I'm fighting a terrorist organization. I'm fighting Hezbollah. And I was right, because eventually Hezbollah doesn't really care about us as well. We are Israelis. We are a target for him. It doesn't matter if we're Arab. 2 babies were killed just near me in Nazareth. So yeah, that's for me something that I knew it from the beginning. And yeah, and obviously even during my injury in the Second Lebanon War and during my rehabilitation, my country never left me alone. In fact, my country is with me until today, if I need any help. So, yeah, I guess the answer is from the beginning.
That's great to hear, first of all, but I have to admit, usually Jewish Israelis don't see your approach as anything mainstream in the Israeli Arab society. So my question is basically, how did you deal with, I guess, natural criticism coming from your community, your friends, your family members, and how do you justify that to yourself, really? Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, we must understand that in 2003, taking a step like this, it is unique, and it wasn't something as part of a usual decision, and you know, not in the Jewish community and not in the Arab community. But let me tell you 2 things, two important things. One, when I served in the army, the second I stepped into the unit in Golani, not only I was accepted immediately, but I become a family member, even less than a second. And for me, everybody must understand that as an Israeli Arab who was serving in the IDF, who is advocating and speaking about Israel, saying the truth and sometimes even criticize. Obviously, I'm a citizen. And it's my, I don't even say it, I have to, when there is the time to criticize. And I see more and more Jewish people from the Jewish community actually following my agenda, which I'm very happy about. Now, I want to take you now to the Arab society. Obviously, it is a big deal in 2003 for sure, because it wasn't like today. Because today we are seeing more and more Israeli Arabs serving in the IDF, serving in the national service, volunteering, okay? And here's another statistics for you. In 2003, when I was listed, I'm talking specifically about the national service, Shirut Leumi, there were only 200 Israeli Arabs volunteering to the national service. 200 yearly. Today, we're in 2020, yearly, there is 5,500 Israeli Arabs serving in the national service, volunteering, and we must understand it's yearly, which means every year there is another new 5,500 volunteers to the national service, where they serve in the police, in the hospitals, paramedics, and other community places that they can serve. And this number is going to grow up more and more, which means we are seeing the involvement of the Israeli Arabs. And a survey that was conducted just 2 months ago, they asked the Israeli Arabs, especially the amongst the young generation, how do you define yourself? And there were four answers. Either you can define yourself as a Palestinian, or either as an Arab, or either as an Israeli, or Israeli Arab. More than 76% answered either Israeli or Israeli Arabs. Only 9% answered Palestinians. The rest are Arabs. So we are seeing something that I like to call Israelization, especially in the young generation. And the reason is very simple, because the process that the young generation is going through, it's a very different process than what our older generation was. Our older generation had the war in 48, the war in 56 and 67 and 73. Up until the 60s, Arab Israelis couldn't really even move freely in Israel. And now we don't have it. We don't have this. We are free. We can achieve whatever we want. And let's be honest, a lot of Israeli Arabs are successful here in Israel. Few examples, right? The biggest bank in Israel, Bank Leumi. Not everybody know that, but the chairman of that bank is an Israeli Arab from the village Taibe. His name is Samer Haj Yahya. Okay, again, I want to say it because I want everybody to understand it. The biggest bank in Israel, Bank Leumi. The chairman of that bank is a Muslim Israeli Arab, Samer Haj Yahya. The biggest hospital in the north, in Nahariya, the chairman of that hospital is an Israeli Arab, Fad Barhoum. And the captain of the football team is a Muslim. And there's a lot of more and more examples that I can give, from the Supreme Court to the media and the doctors and lawyers and whatever. And obviously successful businesses as well. So what I'm trying to say is that we are seeing a huge difference. And by the way, take it back to the IDF, even in terms of listening to the IDF, there is more and more Israeli Arabs listening to the IDF, serving in the IDF. If you ask me personally, what do I prefer? I always like to go for the middle solution. And the middle solution, exactly, it's the national service. Shirut Leumi. The motto that I advocate for, it's serving your country while serving your community. And you can do it in the national service. And this is the best solution for the Israeli Arabs. And also, I think that the Israeli Arabs look at it this way. That's why there is a huge increase in volunteering to the national service.
Well, I hope that continues. Now, Yosef, as an Israeli Arab, you're in a unique position to dispel lies that come up constantly against Israel. How do you answer people when you feel like you recognize they're lying, or they don't know the facts?
I will tell them that you are lying in their faces.
Like in Israel.
Simple as that. I can give you an example. I participated in the apartheid week in South Africa. I went there through the strategic office affair here in Israel. Mm-hmm. And I was asked to go and actually be part of that week against the BDS, against the anti-Israeli activists. And I was called to participate in a debate live on TV in South Africa, one of the main TV stations in South Africa. And I was debating actually the leader of the BDS in South Africa. There's an amazing video about it, by the way, that you can watch, and I would say you can watch, relax, and enjoy, because you can see literally, with all modesty, obviously I say that, but how I crushed the BDS. But it wasn't so hard. It was very easy because he kept lying, and I kept revealing his lies, and I kept telling him, "You are lying," live on TV, time after time after time. One of the examples were exactly before the huge pandemic, the Corona pandemic, when the Ministry of Health took time until they translated the instructions in Arabic, but they did translate it in Arabic, the instructions for the Corona. And the leader of the BDS said, that Israel didn't translate the instructions, and in fact that Israel doesn't really care about the health of the Israeli Arabs in Israel. I immediately took my phone and I showed him in his face the instructions in Arabic that issued by the Ministry of Health. And not only I showed him, but I called him out loud. You are a liar. By the way, while he was saying his things, immediately I called him a liar. And this is something I want everybody to understand. In the last years, I see that a lot of pro-Israeli organizations and us as an Israeli country, as official government office as well, I've seen that we are too defensive, gentle, trying to say sorry about everything, basically. No, that's not the way. That's not the way. It's not our way. We attack. We attack back. When there is a liar, we say there is a liar. When we need to expose their lies, we expose their lies. And when we need to attack back and present more facts about how, for instance, Hezbollah is a terrorist organization, how Hamas is a terrorist organization, how the BDS, it's a terrorist organization in suits. We do that. And that's exactly the way. Simple.
It sounds simple, for sure. I actually want to pinpoint that because, well, my next question, was going to be how do you actually battle these comments or battle these lies? But for me, at least, it seems like a lot of the times it's not necessarily intentional lies because, people have their biases and they hate Israel or even fear it. Sometimes it seems like complete ignorance, right? Like the media is very biased. They keep hearing like
always complete ignorance. Always it's complete ignorance. And I'll give you the best example. By the way, anti-Semitism, racism, it's actually coming from ignorancy. I'm going to give you 3 examples from here, two from Israel and one from South Africa. I'll start from the South Africa. After my interview on TV, on the TV channel over there, the EFF political party contacted the Jewish community and they asked to meet me. Now, for those who you don't know about the EFF, it's a pro-Palestinian extremists that not only they hate Israel, but their leader is called Hitler of South Africa. Okay? And they asked to meet me after the interview because for the first time, they saw something different that they didn't know about because they were ignorant. I can tell you that I went 50 minutes out of Johannesburg in a very poor place, really poor area, to meet those members. And when I met them, I actually saw people who has no idea about who really us. The BDS comes to their areas, hand them money, and tell them exactly what to say about Israel. They told me that. They told me that.
Incredible.
Okay? 1 hour after I finished my lecture to those guys, one of the guys that was very extreme towards me, I could even sense and feel the hatred from the beginning. He looked at me and he said, "You know what? You managed to change my mind and open my eyes." When he said that, I immediately took an Israeli flag out of my pocket and I said, "Okay, so it's the time for you to take a photo with the Israeli flag with me." It was like going, no.
Of course, a bit
come
soon.
Here. No, he took the picture.
Wow.
I have it. He took the picture. What I'm trying to say is that when they are ignorant, and it's not their fault, this is what they know, that's how they react. We were there to reveal the truth, and now they react differently. So in that term, I've made some change for the better in South Africa. And now I'm going to give you about the examples here. Because unfortunately we have extremists here, minority extremists, but we have them here, both in the Jewish community and in the Arab community. And I'm going to give you now 2 examples about that. I went to speak in a pre-military school here in Israel, in the north. When I came, one of the students, just before his time to serve in the army, he came to me and he shook my hand and he said, I Googled you. I knew that you were coming. I Googled you. And I just want to tell you one thing. You're an Arab. All Arabs are terrorists. And for me, a good Arab is a dead Arab. I asked him a simple question. How many Arabs friends you have? Or before me, how many Arabs you talk to? You know what he answered me?
None.
0. I was the first one. I said to him, okay, sit down. Let's talk. I finished the lecture. I came to him. He shook my hand and he said, I spoke out of ignorance. By the way, today he is one of the volunteers in our organization.
Great. Very
On the other hand, I went to speak here in a high school in Nazareth, Arabic high school in Nazareth. Same thing. This kid comes to me, 11th grade. He comes to me and he said, I knew you were coming, and I just wanted to tell you, obviously he knew some information about me. I just want to tell you, you are a traitor. You're a traitor to your people. The Jewish are racists. They don't want us here. They don't want us to succeed here. You are a traitor to your own people. I asked him the same question. How many Jewish friends you have? Do you want to try and guess what was his answer?
Same.
0. So I'd sit down, listen to the lecture. And then I offered him to join and meet other Jewish people that's volunteering in our organization, in my organization, to get vouch for each other. He did. And until today, he's a member of our organization. What we're saying here is that we took a kid that had complete ignorance about the Jewish society and a kid that has complete ignorance about the Arab society. We met them together, and now they are working together. This is exactly a small example of what it should be in a bigger picture. And we are working on that, exactly on that, hopefully for a better and brighter future.
Amen. So to continue that, you see a lot of leaders, especially in politics, there are so many interests spinning around, and you can't ignore the incitement. Just for example, you must have heard of it. Just over a week ago, there was this ex-terrorist that got, he got out of jail and was welcomed in Shfaram by many Israeli Arab leaders. And there was obviously a lot of criticism about it because they're supposed to represent the good of the country and the good of the people, the whole people. And so my question to you is, again, how would you say one can deal with that problem, not just in the Israeli Arab community? By the way, there's also incitement and racism and all that in the Jewish Israeli community. But how would you, fight that when basically the people who, the citizens look up to are the ones spreading it?
Let me explain to you a little bit about our organization, and then you will understand exactly how we are fighting this. Our organization, Together Vouch for Each Other, it's an Arab-Israeli organization. And this organization, the board of the organization, you have women and men, Muslim, Christian, Druze, Bedouin, and Jewish, because we wanted to have, it's an Arab-Israeli organization, but we wanted to have all the sectors. The way we can fight this is together. Our goal is to bring the Arab society closer to the Israeli society, to be an integral part of the Israeli society. And we were founded because of our political representative, because we believe that they don't really represent us. Okay? They represent everything beside the Israeli Arabs. They do everything beside treating our own and main and difficult problems. Okay? We have illegal weapons. We have violence against women. We need better infrastructures. We need better education. We need more budgets. And nobody is fighting for that. Because they're occupied of saying Israel is an occupation, saying that Israel is this and Israel is that, and Palestine this and Palestine that. And we fed up. But here's my criticism. And my criticism, for instance, to us and for the Jewish community, and especially the Jewish political party. For us, our criticism is that we haven't, or we failed until today, to bring an Arab-Israeli alternative to face the joint list, for instance. Okay? But I would say the half full cup is that we are seeing more and more voices saying that we need alternative and actually starting to doing things to have alternative. It takes time. We need to be patient. It takes time. But we are working on it. The young generation are working on it. That's one. My criticism to the Jewish community and to the Jewish political party, they failed to be also alternative for the Arab voice. That's why the joint list now with 15 seats in the Knesset. I have a friend who is serving in Magav, okay, as a border police officer. Mm-hmm. He loves Israel. He defends Israel in Jerusalem every day with his own body, and he voted for the joint list. Why? Because nobody else approached him. Nobody else said to him, we will take care of you. Nobody. Not even in one political party, Jewish political party, there is a representative from our community. And we have so many people that they are more than qualified to be in the top 10 of the Likud, of Blue and White, whatever, Yesh Atid. You know what? I'll even go with you further. They say, okay, what about Meretz, the Labour Party? Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? Like they are the huge disappointment. For instance, Meretz, they took the only representative, our representative, that actually brought them voices, almost 1.5, 2 chairs, 2 seats, and they put him outside of the first 10. So what I'm saying is that maybe that we have election very soon. The Jewish political parties can do a huge difference within the Arab voters if they approach them in a way to say, we will take care of you, we will put someone to represent you also, and maybe finally we'll start seeing extremists like the joint list, especially Balad at Tajammu, though they are the ones that went and visited that terrorists, and he is a terrorist, and he will stay a terrorist for all his life, even if he served his time and he's out of jail. True. To actually manage to win, that's what we need to do together, step by step. Mm-hmm.
Now, to sum this all up, if you could choose one message, taking out of this conversation, any message you'd like to send across to whomever, what would it be?
Okay. What I want to say for everyone, and I'm saying everyone because I know that we're not only talking to people in Israel, we're talking to people worldwide. In Israel, the majority, both in the Arab society and in the Jewish society, they want to live together in partnership. The majority, they are not racists. Unfortunately, the extremists from both sides right now are the ones that they are controlling us because they are louder, they are more violent. Okay? A process to a better society, I feel it's happening. It's a slow process. My request is to be patient about it, because eventually we will manage to remove those extremists from us and to be, as a majority here in the Israeli society, living side by side, respecting each other, and be proud that we are in an Israeli society in Israel. And one more thing, don't believe everything on the social media. You might see a Palestinian flag in Haifa, but it doesn't mean that it represents all the Arabs in Haifa. You might see a protest in Kufr Qasim, but it doesn't say that the 2 million Arabs here in Israel, they are represented in that protest. If you go and speak one-on-one with Israeli Arabs, even with Palestinians, one-on-one, with no camera, no nothing, you will hear the truth, and it will surprise you.
Great. To be honest, I think you touched on the world's general challenge right now, which is basically everything that's happening viral, right? Thank you so much, Yosef. It was fascinating. And I'd like to thank you again for joining us. We really love to have you. And hopefully we'll get to have some more of these talks. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
See you soon.